Hello and welcome to this module. I am super excited about this module because we're going to be talking about being obsessed with the process, which is like seriously what I feel like is my zone of genius, is what I feel like I really understand, and I love teaching this and I love talking about and helping people become obsessed with the process. I think that when you really understand this concept like deep in your bones, this is really the key to your success as an artist, but also more importantly, the key to you feeling fulfilled and having fun doing what you're doing. Okay, so first I'm gonna do a little doodle to illustrate this idea. This is where we are now, okay? This is what we want. This is our goal. This is where we are now. Now, I think creating goals is a really amazing thing for our brain and for our life. It gives our brain supervision. It gives it something to focus on. We've talked about the primitive brain and how it's all about avoiding pleasure, avoiding pain, seeking pleasure, and being efficient. So really, our primitive brain is a lot like a toddler with scissors. And if we don't give it supervision, it's going to poo and pee everywhere, and it's gonna draw all over the walls. It's gonna cut the sheets and throw up, and and it's gonna hurt itself, right? So having a goal is kind of like giving our brain something to really focus on. So what's the difference between these two? Well, I think a great way to think about it is, what's the difference between somebody that wins $1 million and somebody who makes $1 million? The difference is that the person who makes $1 million, they had to become somebody that could make $1 million, right? They had to go through the process to become somebody that can create that amount of money. Whereas somebody who wins it, they are the same person that they are, but they suddenly had the result of $1 million. So the difference between this you and then this you is just that you will go through a process of becoming the version of you, another version of you that has achieved this goal, that has created another result in your life. To put it simply, you're going to have different models, right? So you're going to have a different thought, a different feeling, action, and result here. And then the version of you that has this goal will have different thoughts, different feelings, different actions that you'll act differently to create a different result. Okay, so there are two ways where we can go through the process where we can approach going after our goals. We can, one, either be obsessed with this, or we can be obsessed with this. When we are obsessed with this, we are being obsessed with the result. When we are obsessed with this, we are obsessed with the process. Those of us who really struggle with procrastination and taking action on our goals and heading towards our goals, most of us really tend to fall under the being obsessed with the result category. Okay, why is that? It's because we only feel reward, we only feel good if we get the result. So if we don't feel good or we don't believe that we're gonna get the result, then of course we don't do it. Of course we don't take action. When you're obsessed with the process, the reward is not the end result. The reward is going through the process itself. Kind of like going through a car wash, right? Going from point A to point B. And so you feel rewarded every step of the way. So of course you're taking action. Of course you're moving forward. And so then you keep going and you're learning and you don't procrastinate. So what defines whether you end up being obsessed with the result and you take that approach, or if you're obsessed with the process? It's how you view this and how you view this. Okay, so this is the exact same image that we just had, but now there's just two of them. I'm going to show you how it looks when we approach the goal from the place of being obsessed with the result up here, and then we'll show how it looks when you're obsessed with the process, okay? So first we're going to go do this. So if you're viewing where you are now as like, this is bad, right? So you're not feeling sufficient. You think that, you know, what I hear a lot is like, I'm not where I should be. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy where I am now. I'm not successful, right? And so you're viewing now from this place of like, you're thinking it's just bad, right? It's not good. And then you're thinking, and the way you view your goal is that this is better. And so you're kind of thinking that, like, you know, when you achieve this goal, you're going to be happier. People who achieve this goal are just always confident and, you know, everything's perfect for them. They have no problems anymore. You know, you think that like, okay, I'm worthy when I achieve this goal. I'm good enough. I'm successful. I'm a real artist when I get here. If that's the way you're viewing where you are now and viewing your goal, then you're going to be very obsessed with the result, right? That's the way you're going to approach it, is going to be very obsessed with the result. Because you're so dependent on this goal in order to make you feel good, in order to feel better. And so then the way we approach or think about the goal, it's almost like this really dependent, needy energy. And so then your reason for taking action, for going through the process, your reason is going to be so that you can become good enough, right? So that you can become worthy and become a real artist. But this is littered with so much anguish and pain and procrastination, because every single time we take action and we are not yet at the goal, all it does is just prove to ourselves over and over and over again that we are not successful, that we are failures, that we are not good enough, all that kind of stuff. Now, when we are going after the goal and we think, and the way we view where we are now is good, right? And then we also think the goal is good, just different, right? It's not better or worse or anything like that. It's good here, it's good here. Then we are going to be so much more obsessed with the process. So, you know, we're thinking like, we have everything we need. There's nothing wrong with where we are now. We're supposed to be exactly where we are. Nothing's gone wrong. You know, I'm like feeling sufficient here, right? And then when you're at the goal, it's like, it's just different. It's just another version. It's just another, like, because you know, right, based on this, if you remember the last module, one of the last modules, life is always 50-50, right? Life is always 50% negative and always 50% positive. So even though you achieve all the goals in your life, life will always be 50-50. It's just different. That's it. It's just another flavor of it. And then we also talked in another in another previous module, right, about choosing to love something on purpose, right? Like this would totally be applied here. That we it's 50-50 here too, right? When we're obsessed with the result, we think this is 100% bad, and then we think this is 100% good. And so of course we're just super like obsessed with the result. And so then when you're obsessed with the process, your reason for going from one good place to another good place, just a different one, then it's purely because it's fun, purely because it's interesting to you, purely because it's something fun, yeah, it's something kind of cool to do, right? It's just something different. Okay, so let me illustrate what is happening in some models when you're obsessed with the result. So I've put where we are now, right, where I am in the circumstance line, because it is a circumstance, right? Like where we are right now is completely neutral, and we get to decide what we want to think about it all the time, right? And then same with my goal, same with whatever it is that you want to achieve, that is a circumstance. It's also completely neutral, and we get to think whatever we want about it. Okay, so we're thinking about where we are now, and I hear this one a lot, I'm not where I should be. And so when you're thinking that about where you are right now, and you feel negative, and then what do we do? What do all of us do when we feel negative? We procrastinate, right? And then when we procrastinate, what result do we create? We prove to ourselves, again, that we are not where we should be. Our thoughts always create our results. So a lot of us think that our results is because of where we are, because of our circumstances. Nope, that is not true. It is our thoughts that continue to create our results. Our results, and another way to think about it is that our results is always proving our own thoughts true. Okay, now let's do the same thing with the way we think about our goal. So my goal, right? And then we have the thought about this goal is that I'm not a real artist until I achieve it, until I get here. And so it's better over here. And so when we're thinking that, when we're thinking like I'm not successful, I'm not worthy or whatever until I reach this goal, of course we feel negative. And just like this model, when we feel negative, most of us procrastinate. And so then what happens is our result, we prove ourselves true. Once again, our thoughts create our results, once again, that we are not a real artist. So as you can see, right, like the way we view these two, it doesn't create any model where we are actually taking action, right? Like, I think it sounds useful, or it almost sounds like, oh, if I think it's better over here, it's gonna make me want to take action, it's gonna make me like feel really motivated to go there, but it doesn't. As you can see, right? It doesn't do that. All it does is create more negative emotion. Like we have enough negative emotion already. And so all it does is create more procrastination. Okay, let's look at another side of this. Let's do some models for being obsessed with the process. Okay, same thing. We're gonna look at some models for being obsessed with the process. Okay, so I chose this thought. This is one of my favorite thoughts, which is like, nothing is wrong. This is totally perfect. Another one that I really love is like, I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be exactly where I am, which really connects with the whole nothing is wrong. But, these are just examples. You can find seriously whatever thought that creates like a much better feeling for you. But anyway, when I'm thinking this, right, about where I am now, then I feel some kind of positive emotion. For me, it feels like calm. It actually feels like kind of exciting. It feels like there's open to possibilities. And so when I'm feeling positive, I'm much more likely to take action and to keep taking action. So I am taking action, and so once again, my results prove my thoughts true, that when I take action, yeah, nothing's wrong. Everything's great, actually. Okay, same thing with the goal. So my goal is in the circumstance line, and your thought, or my thought, is it's 50-50 over here as well, right? It's 50% positive, 50% negative in all of our life. Another one that I really like thinking is, I'm not happier here. I won't be happier here. And I know that sounds so strange, but I really do remind myself that a lot. Like when I feel myself feeling a little bit too like desperate or needy, like if I think about something that I want and it doesn't feel good, then that means that's a sign to me that I am thinking I will be happier over there. And so I actually have to remind myself in those moments that like, wait, I'm not actually going to be happier there, right? Like there is no future, like since our thoughts create our feelings, that means our capacity to feel any emotion is 100% already. So there is no future scenario where we have more access to those feelings. If I'm not feeling happy right now, right, it's because of the thoughts that I'm choosing to think. And so when I think things like, oh yeah, I'm not actually going to be happier there, I can be happy now, or then I feel much more positive. And when I'm feeling positive, I take action from that place, and then as a result, I really show how life really is 50-50. And really what that 50-50 is like, I feel so much more grounded, right? I feel so much more, I don't feel like I'm like up and down and crazy and like all this emotional roller coaster. So when you're content over here and you're content over here, then your brain has so much more room and energy to focus on right here, right? It's like, this is the interesting part. When you're not content here and you think it's better over here, then most of your time and your brain energy is spent thinking about how things should be different and how this is better. Okay, so I want to do a side-by-side comparison of like the symptoms of being obsessed with the result and the perks of being obsessed with the process, right? Like when are you being in one or the other? And then at the end of this lesson, we'll talk about how we can shift from one to another. This is just so that you kind of have a point of reference, so you know which one you're in. And then up here is just, it's just for our reference. So one way that you can tell that you're obsessed with the result is that the only thing, or like the main thing that's exciting about achieving the goal, about going after the goal, is the external result that you get from it. So whether that means it's the praise or the respect maybe that you get from others, and so that then you can think that about yourself, right? And that's because, again, you think that it's better over here. When you're obsessed with the process, what you're most excited about is the internal results. It's the person that you end up becoming when you achieve the goal. It's like the new set of thinking and the new set of tools that you learn. That's the most interesting part and the most exciting part. When you're obsessed with the result, the way that you're kind of thinking about the goal is that you are the same person, but with the external results, with the stuff that comes with the goal, right? It's kind of like the same thing as winning $1 million and how you would feel. So when you're obsessed with the result, the way you're thinking about what you would be like as this person getting this goal is that you're thinking about it as the same person, that you would achieve it as the same person with the same thoughts and the same feelings and the same actions and so on. And so, all of our thoughts, it's all based, and all of our beliefs, it's based on our past. It's what we've been thinking over and over. And so we recycle a lot of that. But when you're obsessed with the process, you're thinking about becoming this person. You're thinking, how would this person think? How would this person feel? How would this person act? What would be different? And so you're really future focused, right? You're really focusing on grabbing thoughts from the future, thoughts that you might not be thinking now, in order to create that different result. When you're obsessed with the result, oftentimes what it feels like is nothing is working because you don't have the result yet. So what happens a lot is there's a lot of tearing everything down and starting over, and it's tearing everything down again and starting over. So let's say, for example, you have a goal to make art that would be on par with Blizzard. If you don't know that company, it's just a big video game company, and they do a lot of fantasy stuff, like, they create World of Warcraft, all that kind of stuff. I'm a big fan. But anyway, so let's say you have a goal where you want to make artwork that would be on par with that, because let's say you want a job there or something like that, right? So you think of some ideas of what to do. And so you start practicing anatomy. You said like, okay, I'm going to draw 100 bodies, 100 figure drawings so I can understand the muscles. But like with every single drawing, when you're feeling like, like nothing's working, it's like you're with every drawing, you're like, am I good enough yet? Am I good enough yet? Am I good enough yet? Being obsessed with the result in this way, where nothing feels like it's working, I've heard it be called kind of like you're playing the fishing game, where you throw out a line and then you check it, and then you throw out another line and then you check it, and you just give it only like five seconds, right? You throw out another line and then you check it, and so of course you never catch a fish, right? You never let the hook sink deep enough and long enough to come out of something, to make it come of something. And so then with the same example, it's like, you do these anatomy practice, and then you don't get the result after doing 5, and so then you switch exercises. You're like, okay, so now I'm just gonna do color then. Maybe that's the problem. My color's not good enough. And then you switch that, and then you just keep switching. I was really like this early on in my, just art career, where I was trying to grow my Instagram and stuff like that. And I was really, really lost and confused about who I was as an artist, and super obsessed with the result. And it showed up for me where I, would make artwork and I would post it. And if it didn't get 1 million likes, I would think that something's completely wrong. I don't know what, but something's totally wrong. And I think I always blamed it on my style. And so then I would go and be like, okay, I have to have a totally different style. This style doesn't work. And so I would research other artists and like try to see like what's the style that works. And so then I would try again another, and then it's like, nope, not another 1 million likes. And so then I would be like, okay, the medium's the problem. I need to start doing watercolors, and then do that, and then like, nope, not 1 million likes, right? And I would just keep changing and keep starting over. When you're obsessed with the process, it feels like you're building something. It feels like you do have this kind of visual and feeling like something is growing, right? Like you take a little piece from this and you take another piece from this, and then you notice that this part was working, this part didn't, but this part's working, and so you build on top of that. When you're obsessed with the result, you completely avoid, hide, ignore, right? Like vilify failure. Why? Because it just proves how much where you are right now, the way you're thinking about where you are right now, it just proves it true, that it sucks, that you're not good enough, all that stuff. When you're obsessed with the process, you evaluate failure, right? This is good. So what failure just means is information. And we're gonna talk a lot more in another module all about how to make failure completely neutral, how to help you look at failure in a way that's the most useful. Yeah, and so this, like failure, you're curious about failure. When you're obsessed with the result, you're comparing and despairing a lot. And it's because you're looking at, somebody who has the result that you want, and you're thinking, where they are is just so much better, and you're not there yet, right? And their life is perfect. And then when you're obsessed with the process, there's no comparison. You don't compare, because you know that the reason why somebody else has a result that they have and you don't, the only reason that you don't have that result is just because you haven't gone through the process. That's it. It doesn't mean that you're not good enough. It doesn't mean that you're not a real artist, all that kind of stuff. All it means is that there's a process that you haven't gone through. That's it. When you're obsessed with the result, you generally have a feeling of being underwhelmed when you do achieve some kind of goal. Like when you, complete a painting or make an artwork, you generally feel like something's missing or it's underwhelming. And that's because, again, you have this idea that, this goal, like where you'll be, it's just so much better over here. And so then when we do reach it, or when we reach like a smaller goal in between, it doesn't end up being this like the clouds don't part and then, suddenly everything's happy and great, right? Like you're still human even when you reach this goal. And so you end up feeling very underwhelmed. When you're obsessed with the process, when you reach goals, you're fascinated. Like it's the same way that you would kind of see when you have a failure. Like maybe there's a little bit more pride and like fun, but it's like you evaluate your successes as well, right? It's all so curious, the entire thing, because you're so obsessed with this part. This is the part that you're curious and fascinated about. When you're obsessed with the result, you are super impatient. Or like there's this general feeling that you're in a rush for something. And that's, pretty clearly it's because you think that this is better over here. That you think the answer to all your problems and happiness and all that kind of stuff is over here. And so it's like you get really dependent on this, right? Like it feels really like, oh, I can't be happy unless I'm over here. And so you feel very impatient. And not surprisingly, when you're obsessed with the process, you are super patient, because all of this is all for fun. There's nothing wrong with where you are here. There's nothing wrong with this, and this is really interesting. And then when you get here is not better. It's all 50-50 anyway. When you're obsessed with the process, you're really focused on what you don't have, right? Because this feels really scarce, this feels really bad, and everything that you want is over here, and this is like rainbow daisy land. And so you're really focused on what you don't have, not having the result. And of course, when you're obsessed with the process, you totally focus on what you do have. I think this really relates to the feeling of like it feels like something's building, right? And so you're just as much focused on what is working than just on rather than on all the things that isn't working. And so you do focus on what you have as well and building on that. When you're obsessed with the result, thinking about the goal can feel really painful. Like it really almost feels like it just doesn't sound fun. It just sounds like really far away. It just feels bad to think about the goal. And so then what a lot of people do is that then they just stop setting goals, or they just make it really vague, which really is a kind of a form of self-sabotage, because how can you know what steps to take if you don't know where you're going, right? It's kind of like trying to go to the airport and then not knowing which gate to board the plane because you don't know the destination. And of course, so then when you're obsessed with the process, the goal feels like fun. It feels like a puzzle. So these are just some. I mean, like, these can show up so differently for different people. This is just the ones that I came up with, and so I think it's like, the workbook is going to kind of help you think about how is it showing up for you when you're being obsessed with the result. What does it look like for you? And as you can probably tell, though, that when you're obsessed with the process, you're going to be just so much more motivated, and you're going to be taking action in such a more like fluid way, and it's like this steady thing. Oh, that's another symptom, right? Is that when you're obsessed with the result, it's like this yo-yo effect. Like you're super productive like at one point, and then you crash, and then you like work yourself up to work again, and then you're super productive, and then you crash. Whereas when you're obsessed with the process, it's this kind of just like steady moving along, pretty grounded, pretty consistent. And so as you can probably tell, this is a lot more fun, this is a lot more motivating, and this is a lot more likely to achieve the goal. Like there are people who definitely achieve their goals even when they're obsessed with the result, but that is just so exhausting, and it's so tiring, and it's like really like burnout 101, seriously. So I hope by now I have sold you on being obsessed with the process. And this isn't binary, right? Like it's not like one or the other. Like I still catch myself being, in being obsessed with the result. And so I just kind of figure out what's going on, why like I am noticing that I'm not having fun or something like that, or I'm noticing like I'm not feeling good about this, like what's going on? Where am I being obsessed with the result? And so it's really really like a shifting that's going to happen as you keep taking action. And also, let's really be clear that when you're obsessed with the process, it does not mean you don't care about the result, right? Like, if anything, I actually think it means that you do care more about the result. You're really thinking about, you know, what it takes, or the thoughts and actions and feelings, right, that get to this place. And then you care about the result because you're evaluating your failures, but it's not from this like needy, dependent energy. Okay, so how do you become more obsessed with the process? So the first thing is that you gotta recognize your symptoms. Recognize and be self-aware, practice self-awareness, and notice when you're crashing, or when you're, you know, really, when you're procrastinating, really, right? This, like, really take a look at those symptoms. By now, we would have talked about this tool called the Thought Download, which is, you know, it's just a stream of consciousness writing. For 5 to 10 minutes, you write all of your thoughts down so that you can really see what's going on, like the way you're thinking about something, right? So when you recognize, you know, one of those symptoms, it's like, oh, okay, I am being obsessed with the result right now. What am I thinking, right? So take a good look at that. So be self-awareness, do a thought download. Okay, step 2 is see, you know, when you do that thought download, or if you notice you're thinking that way, right? See where your brain is rejecting reality or fantasizing the goal, right? Making it seem like it's a better place, like the whole grass is greener thing. And then question it. So this is what the workbook is really about. Some of the questions is going to be about, like, you know, when you think about achieving your goal, what are going to be the new problems you're going to have? What are you going to be insecure about? What are you still going to have, you know, what's going to be 50-50 still? What's going to be 50% negative in this scenario, even with a goal achieved? And then the same thing about, you know, some of the questions will be about, like, your reality now. Like, how is it 50% positive now? How is this perfect? How is this making sense? Why does it make sense that we're here? How is this, how is it that this is nothing wrong, right? So, for example, if you recognize that you're comparing and despairing, right? And so then you're thinking that, you know, this person who, you know, is working for Blizzard, they must be happy all the time. They must feel confident all the time. And so then, you know, the way we question it is like, what would somebody like that feel insecure about? What would be their 50% negative is? And yeah, I really recommend finding all of it, right? Finding where you do all of this, but also to day, you know, doing a thought download every single day and seeing that. Number 3 is, the third step is to change your reason. Like, start to get excited about who you get to become. Start to get excited about, oh my God, I'm actually going to, you know, end up, I'm going to learn about anatomy really well. Like, that's going to be the kind of person I am, and how interesting and how fun that process will be. Like, you get to learn how to make $1 million instead of winning it. Like, you gotta find reasons, like, why is it way better to make $1 million instead of winning it? Why is learning to become the artist that, you know, can make artwork on par with Blizzard stuff better than, you know, a magic pixie fairy giving you, you know, a wish, and the next day you wake up suddenly with all these skills? Like, you have to find in your own bones and in your own body, like, why that's actually better, and look for those reasons for yourself. And then the 4th step is to start looking at your goal like it's a puzzle. Like, you know, if I'm imagining the version of myself that's achieved this goal, what did I do to get there? What were all the different steps? What were the things that I started to master? What were the things that I learned? What did that version of me who achieved the goal, what do they believe? What do they know without a doubt, right? And then your work is to, like, it's almost like, yeah, you're putting the pieces together of becoming this person. Okay, so that's what I have for you today. Again, the workbook is really going to help with this. And then also, by now, the daily homework has changed. We are now doing, right, thought downloads and models. We've been doing sessions together for at least 4 sessions now. And so you have had an idea now of what it's like to do a model. And so now it's time to do that, yourself. And to do that, I highly recommend, and that's why the daily homework is to do one every day. Actually, to do two every day. Doing a thought download, and then doing a model, and then doing another model. So first you do you take a thought from the thought download, and then you do an unintentional model, meaning it's a thought that your brain just offered up to you by default, and then seeing the result. Like, if I keep thinking this thought, this is the result I'm gonna get. And then doing another model based on the thought, feeling, action, or result that you would rather have. And I really recommend doing this every day, because as you can see right before that, like, our thoughts always create our results. And so the more self-aware we are, the more that we are on top of it when it comes to what our brain is thinking and offering up to us, then the better it is for us, the more prepared we are in changing our reason, changing the way that we view our current reality and our goal, and so that then we can actually do this from a really fun and delightful place. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next module. Bye!